Sorry about that, folks. So setting up your business in the cloud, I covered the modules in the list here. So when we start out, what the cloud can do for you and your business, I'm going to talk more about that. That's why you're here. The second module is getting started with Office 365 and what it looks like to build your business completely in the cloud using Office, as well as all the components here. But really, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneDrive for Business, Outlook, all of those are in Office 365, so we'll talk about that. Module 3, we talk about storing your files in the cloud using OneDrive for Business, so we'll cover that. CRM, so customer relationship management, and using dynamic CRM online to keep track of all your customers. That's module 4. Module 5, here's kind of like the hidden gem, right? Like an awesome public cloud service that a lot of people don't know about, and that's Intune. So I can provision my iOS and Android and Windows devices in the cloud and push updates to them or applications to them, and that's all done in Intune. So I'm going to talk about that in Module 5. Module 6, building and running servers without the hardware. You're probably thinking, how is that possible? What we're talking about here is not physically running the servers on-prem, but basically what you're doing is you're renting space on someone else's hardware, right? So what does it look like to have a virtual machine running in Microsoft Azure without having to manage all that hardware? Module 7 is Server Manager, the heart and soul of server, where we manage everything in that environment. So Server Manager is the key there. We'll talk about how it can help you in getting up and running as a small or medium business. Really, the whole book is really centered around, hey, I'm new to cloud services, I'm a startup, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a student. And so it's really it was interesting when I was building the book out, because when I was talking to our editing team, they're like, okay, so who's the customer? And I'm like, everybody's the customer. Everybody's the audience, right? They're like, well, no, is it IT pro? Is it developer? And I'm like, yes, it is. And they're like, no, you have to pick one. And I'm like, well, really, it's for somebody that doesn't really know about public cloud services. Maybe they know a little bit about it, but they want to know more about it. And then they want to see kind of from the layman's perspective, the admin side of it, right? And so I started, I finally convinced them that this book is really for anyone that wants to learn about what we're doing as far as public cloud services. More importantly, we get into Module 8, running applications remotely. This is Azure Remote App. Adnan Cartwright, Superstar MVP, is going to be the next user group you guys have. He goes really deep in Azure Remote App. He also has been working with a product group. So if it's the time to ask questions about Azure Remote App, he's the guy, right? So make sure you tune in for that. Accessing third-party applications. A lot of people don't know that inside of Azure, in an Azure Active Directory, we have a tab in there that says Applications, and we can assign our users an Azure Active Directory to have access to third-party applications. The one I used in the book is QuickBooks, right? Like Intuit builds QuickBooks, Microsoft doesn't build QuickBooks, but we have a QuickBooks application in the application gallery, so we can pin that to this really cool access panel extension, and we can have these custom dashboards with our apps on it. It's pretty neat, and we can also have those show up on the application launcher in Office 365. So I'll talk about that. Building your website, right? Your website is your customer-facing presence, right? It's like the website means a lot to start when you're starting your business out. So we'll talk about how you can build a website, how you can configure certain things within the website, make it make it custom, use themes, those types of things. I can build a website in Azure in about 7 minutes, making it look pretty, 7 days. But when we talk about even building apps with Windows App Studio or taking all these components you see on the screen here, I can get my business up and running with public cloud services in a matter of a day or two, right? At least getting users in O365, getting up and running. And back in the old school, because I'm old school, we go back, in time. For me to build my business in the cloud, I had to go basically buy a small business server, $8,000 to $10,000 piece of hardware that I had to manage, that I had to know all the components in to be able to keep that thing up and running. And then on top of that, we're going to set Exchange and SQL Server on top, right? A lot to know. You basically need to be a high-end IT administrator with all that knowledge to be able to just get up and running. And for folks that aren't really focusing on their building their infrastructure out, they just want to get their business up and running, get the job done. Why not use public cloud services? That's what I'm going to focus on here is what the cloud can do for you. Why are you on this webinar? Why do you care? The big picture, right? Here's the big picture. This is about why I built the book, why I care about sharing information with our customers around how they can onboard themselves very easily into the public cloud services. So this picture I use on almost every presentation that I do, because it's kind of interesting to talk about the old school and the private cloud technology and traditional IT we're all used to. I've been around. I'm old, right? I'm old. So when we go back in time, I remember driving down the road in the snow in Spokane, Washington, to go and actually replace a hard drive and a drive, that failed in some server down the road. My pager going off, right, at 3 a.m, and just those days, managing the hardware from the ground up, at least in a small medium environment, may not be the best choice. I mean, with all the options we have today. So when we look at private cloud, Windows Server, System Center, SQL Server, Dynamics, Office on private cloud, and then public cloud, Office 365, Azure, Microsoft Intune, and CRM Online, they all have common technologies between, right? We talk about identity with the private cloud, Active Directory, right? With the public cloud, single sign-on and identity, federating our users into applications that reside in our private cloud. Virtualization. If you're running VMs up in the cloud, well then you're going to be running in Hyper-V, right? If you want to run it on your public cloud and on bare metal, you're going to be running in Hyper-V. So we have a common virtualization stack that kind of spans between, hey, if you're running public cloud, you're running a virtualization. If you're running on bare metal, you're using Hyper-V. Manageability. When I think about managing computers and users, I'm going to do that through Active Directory. I'm going to do that through System Center. And if I'm managing devices, I'm going to use System Center on-prem, Microsoft Intune in the cloud. I can have hybrid scenarios. I can have Microsoft Intune in the cloud and System Center Configuration Manager on-prem and have the best of both worlds. Then that last one there, development, right? Taking Visual Studio on bare metal, building applications, writing code, or perhaps writing code up in Azure, right? And the cool thing about Microsoft Azure is that you can do whatever you want up there. You can build whatever you want. You can run whatever language you want. You want to run Drupal. You want to run PHP. You want to run the LAMP stack. You can do it in Azure. When I do Microsoft talks on cloud, people think Microsoft Azure is just Microsoft. And that's simply not true. The open source is up there. You can run Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. You can go ahead and run. How about Oracle? You want to run Oracle on Linux on a VM? You can do that in Azure. Right. So what I want to do today, the rest of the time here, is spend time on that top box there in the public cloud. So how did I think of the topics for the book? How did the book come along? How did I kind of have this vision about bringing everything together? Do you folks realize there are over 200 public cloud services in Microsoft? But nowhere do we really bring them all together in kind of this holistic approach. If I was building my business, and once again, I mentioned this earlier, if I'm a startup, if I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a student, or I'm a small, medium business, as a business owner, I don't want to worry about going and buying a server and putting it all together and making sure the components work and then having to cool the server and have a building in which I have my server racks, right? If I want to just kind of rent somebody else's space on their data center and run my public cloud services and have a unified console, a dashboard to all of the different tools that I use, all the different services that I use to provision applications and devices for the end users. So I take the big three. I take Azure, I take O365 and Intune, and I have a console which I can manage all of that. What's really cool is in the dashboard for Office 365, down at the bottom we have Azure Active Directory inside of Office, which is key when you're creating Office 365, your main tenant. You're going to create an Azure Active Directory. Now there's an Intune tab down there. So we can go between Intune and O365 dashboard and administration, and also into Azure and have everything from one kind of single pane of glass to manage all of our users. So module 2, getting started with Office 365. Office is Office, right? Excel, PowerPoint, Word, Outlook, all of those different pieces of Office. Now we can expand that from the personal computer on-prem to the cloud. So we have software as a service. So basically software as a service, pay-as-you-go, Office 365. Not only the personal versions of Office, but also mobile versions of Office and services needed to connect them. So you can, if you're using Apple or Android or phone, you have Office, the best of both worlds on those devices. There's an Office 365 administration demo up on the Microsoft Virtual Academy. So I encourage you to go to the Microsoft Virtual Academy to get those demos. For the sake of time, in the next, say 19, 20 minutes, what's in the modules and what you can expect to see in the Microsoft. Each demo is I'd say right around 12 minutes, 14 minutes, some a little longer, some a little shorter. But what I try to do there is just give you the slides here, then a demo, and then kind of close with some resources. So you can get the Office 365 admin demo up on the Microsoft. Store files in the cloud. Well, OneDrive for Business. Why not use that? I mean, each user in Office 365, we already have OneDrive for Business. Each user gets a terabyte of storage space. You can check in and check out files of OneDrive for Business, and it's really easy to access and store those files online. So that's our cloud-based file storage, if you will, and also for protecting your files in your business. So OneDrive for Business also has a demo up on the Microsoft Virtual Academy, so I encourage you to go watch that and how you can use that. Keeping track of our customers, well, we want to do that through customer relationship management. That's going to be Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So with CRM Online, there's lots we can do. And biggest thing is keeping track of our customers, or even better yet, if I'm in Outlook, I can integrate the CRM Online module application inside and seamlessly manage it from within Outlook, and keeping track of all my customers, organizing them, and keeping all the information about each of them, so I can build a relationship, right? A positive relationship, to build loyalty to my customers. And the way we could do that is we can manage all that through not only contact information and follow-ups, but also gives you kind of insights into real-time visibility of sales and tracking pipeline, and a custom dashboard where you can kind of personalize it and develop insights and spots and trends, right, that you see along your sales process, and more importantly, keeping that contact with your customers. So to kind of improve the overall experience for your customers, and also bottom line for your business, right? And tracking your customer service, your sales, and your marketing. And more importantly, they always say, what's the most important asset of anyone given a company? And obviously, the empathetic answer to that is definitely our customers, the people that work within the organization. But it's also the data, right? Without the data, you really don't have a business. So managing all the data, storing the data for your customers and prospects is critical. And then once again, I talked about you can run it on the phone, Android, iOS, smartphones, in addition to the Surface and iPad tablets as well. There's a CRM Online, Microsoft Virtual Academy as well, so I encourage you to go up and check that out. So the next one is Intune, right? So Intune is key. So when we look at managing our devices in the cloud, so once again, this is kind of a hidden gem. A lot of folks don't know about Intune. They may have heard of it, but they haven't really actually implemented or used it. So when we look here, you can see that doesn't matter on almost any device, virtually anywhere. Windows Phone, Android, iOS devices, and keeping those devices healthy, applying updates, deploying software, configuration of policy, and most importantly, monitoring these devices. Basically what you do is you load an agent onto the device, and that agent then talks back to the Intune admin console, and where you're managing all the devices, which then builds this relationship between the device and the dashboard, right? And you can manage these devices on the go. So Intune's a great software as a service to implement. And I did a Microsoft Intune admin demo, so that's also on the Microsoft Virtual Academy. Building and running servers without the hardware. I talked about this. We are running virtual machines on our server hardware inside our data center. What I'm talking about here is building VMs on someone else's hardware and running them remotely. So talked about no hardware needed on-prem. This totally equates to cost savings. So once again, going back, buy an expensive server just to manage that server on-prem. You have to know all those skills about the hardware side of it, as well as, SBS, it was SQL and Exchange. So having a higher level knowledge about the admin responsibilities there. You really don't need a high level or deep understanding of a lot of these products to get up and running and get them going. Building a VM right from Azure, you can use the gallery. There's images already created. You just click on the image and click, done. Storage accounts. If you're building a storage account and you're going to have a VM that resides in that storage account, just build a friendly name for the storage account before you actually build the VM, because that way you'll have a name of the storage account that's friendly. That becomes very helpful when you do things like automation with PowerShell. Because if you don't, when you create a virtual machine, it creates a storage account for you, and it comes up with a very long, archaic name, which really becomes hard to manage down the road if you're using scripts. So just keep that in mind. And then once again, templates, these virtual machines are templates in the gallery. And people always ask me, so, what is Azure, basically? Well, we talked about the gallery, building VMs. You can get the open source images and deployment scripts on the VM at the VM Depot. You can go to their website. So we have all the open source in there, as well as Windows Server and our stuff as well. Understanding Server Manager, Module 7. So this is the heart and soul of Windows Server. The primary admin tool, primary interface for Windows Server 2012 R2, where we manage things like roles and features. And this console is installed by default, and we can go way back in old school. The Server Manager has been around for quite some time. It helps us maintain local and remote instances of all of our servers. It helps us configure and deploy the roles and features, and it's all from one central dashboard. So it's also, monitoring the health of those servers through the console in one kind of pane of glass. I do an introduction to Server Manager on the MBA. These are all, once again, all listed in order, and you can click. And the nice thing about this is maybe I pick up the book because I want to learn more about how to deploy or set up Microsoft Intune, or I want to understand a little bit more about CRM. What's nice about the book and the contributors that help me put all this together is that if I want to jump to certain parts in the book, I can do that. I don't have to necessarily start at the beginning and go all the way through, with the exception of perhaps Office 365, because that's really the first thing you want to do is set up your tenant there. But yeah, this is kind of a la carte. I can jump between the modules and learn different things. You might have a real good understanding of Server Manager, but you don't know a lot about Azure Remote Apps, so you can jump to Module 8, right? Running Windows applications remotely. So we talk about Remote App. The nice thing here is that you can access all of the interconnected applications in Remote App from Mac or PC desktop or laptop, including, once again, the whole gamut of phone, Android, and iOS mobile devices. And what it allows you to do is take advantage of either your own applications that are in a Remote App or the Office, for instance. So all you have to do is actually go to the device, open up Remote App, and now you're connected to your applications that are residing in your environment, where you can publish and unpublish applications for the end users. It's great for reducing costs. It's, once again, a global reach. Anywhere, anytime, on any device, I can get to my Remote App and take advantage of the applications. That's a demo, once again, on Microsoft Virtual Academy. Module 9. Now, this is really cool. So in the book, I talk about third-party applications. So inside Azure Active Directory, there's a tab in there called, well, there's several tabs, but there's a tab called Users, Groups, and Applications. And if you click on Applications, you can actually go into the application gallery. There are over 2,500 Azure application or Azure Active Directory applications that are in there. They're Azure AD aware. So one of them is QuickBooks. So Microsoft doesn't build QuickBooks. Intuit builds QuickBooks. But it's a perfect application to talk about, if I'm running my business in the cloud, one of the things we're going to want to do is manage our books. So I use QuickBooks as an example. I also have ADP Payroll as another example of an app that we can pin to this application dashboard, if you will, called the application the Access Panel extension. I can pin these applications on there, and my users can sign in to these applications, and it automatically is passed the credentials, as we call single sign-on, for the end users into those applications. So once again, it's a great way to say, okay, well, I've got a series of applications I want to give my users access to. I can use the Azure Active Directory in the applications, and I can provision those applications. And what's cool is they'll even show up on the application launcher in Office 365. So I could have all my Office applications in O365, and I can also have these custom applications that are pinned to the panel as well inside of Office 365 on the application launcher. Some people call it the waffle. It kind of looks like a waffle, but that's kind of nice where you can pin those apps. And the cool thing about that, you're not going to give all your users access to ADP Payroll. That'd be a nice thing, right? We can go, print our own paychecks out, but only the people that are in Azure Active Directory that have access to that app will see that app on the panel. So maybe you have a small accounting firm, accounting department, or you have a person that has, wears a lot of different hats. Then you can give them access to, say, QuickBooks and ADP Payroll, but the other users that aren't in that group assigned to that application won't have access to that application. So there's lots there. We do a demo on the Application Gallery and Access Panel extension on the Microsoft Virtual Academy. So I encourage you to go and watch these. Once again, I mentioned earlier, they're like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 14 minutes in length. So you can get a lot of the demos up there, kind of how-to step-by-step. If you really want to get the step-by-step, you'll have to get the book, because that really walks you through building things from the beginning to end. And one thing, kind of an important note there is, one thing I don't want to do is not use partners or saying, hey, you can go and you can build all this stuff out on your own, and you'll never have an issue, or you'll never have a problem with configuration or deployment. We know that's simply not true either. The goal here was to take, from a layman's perspective, what the public cloud services are, how you can get up and running very quickly. But if you want a higher level of integration, you want a higher level of custom and branding, if you want to, move users from on-prem AD into O365 or Azure Active Directory, you definitely need to talk to our partners. So there is a partner section in the book that points you to where you can get contact with our partners to help you go to the next level, right? So Module 10, building websites, I talked about this earlier. That's the main presence of your whole company, right? Is the website. It's like first impression and a first place to stop to get information about your business. So we talk about building out a website. In this case, we talk about platform as a service, building websites, or e-commerce, or building wikis or blogs. That's all done in the cloud. There's, once again, templates for all of this. And it's not just Microsoft. So we say, like content management system, a good one there, WordPress. We're all pretty familiar with WordPress. And so we can take, WordPress and do custom plugins and themes and connect services together, up and running very quickly with a matter of 7 to 10 minutes. I can get a website provisioned in WordPress. Once again, take a little bit more quality time to build it out and make it look nice and pretty and attractive. So this is really how I was inspired to do the book, by the way, is that I had two young ladies in the back of the room at a college. I was doing a talk on public cloud services, was talking, and they really weren't paying attention to me. They were in the back of the room, and until they weren't interested until I said WordPress. And once I said WordPress, they started to lean forward. Their eyes got really big. They started to understand what the cloud services were. And they came up to me after the event, and they said, Blain, do you mean I can build WordPress sites and put them up in the cloud and do the design work and charge my customer back for not only the Azure services to run their WordPress site, but also charge back my design time? And I said, absolutely. And they were super happy. They were thrilled. They ran out of the room. I basically created a summer job for them, And that right there was the moment in time where I said, aha, I need to put this in a story, take a holistic view of all the stuff that we do in the public services realm, and kind of make this what my business look like completely 100% cloud. So, I'm looking to full circle with those folks, those two young ladies, to see how they're doing today. But just to give you an idea, in a matter of hours, they were able to build the website, do design work, and charge the customer back for their Azure services. So there's a web apps gallery demo on the Microsoft Virtual Academy, so check that out. And the last module is building Windows apps using Windows App Studio. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be a developer per se to use Windows App Studio. We can walk you through building a simple app. Yeah, you can get complex. Yeah, it can get complicated, but the basic layperson could use Windows App Studio with a basic understanding of how these things are interconnected to build, build an app. I mean, you don't need a dedicated team of developers to use Windows App Studio. It's free. It's browser based. It runs on Windows 8, 10. It's coming out. We've got 10 out now, so we build apps for that. So it's building mobile apps using the tools and access to data sources right out of the box. So you can go to appstudio.windows.com, check out the Windows App Studio 4 easy steps. Go to the website, then upper right hand corner you click on the sign in page. Sign in, use your account for Microsoft, provisioning of your username and password in your Microsoft account. Click on My Projects, and you get up and running. You can add RSS feeds, HTML page information, YouTube video page, Flickr, Bing News. You can add all these, and you can set themes. A set of these graphical elements that you can make your app look really nice. So you can add your Facebook page, your Instagram feed, create custom menus to make it more appealing, if you will, right? Applying themes and setting different tiles, etc. So there's a demo up there on the Web Apps Gallery. You can build that out, and you can, and also for that one, there's a kind of a step-by-step walkthrough on that as well. And then to kind of close things, wrap things up here, Tim, I want to definitely do a shout out for the folks that actually also helped me build the book. It wasn't just me that wrote the book. We kind of built it out together and wrote the different chapters. So Adnan Cartwright, Young Cho, Janelle Crothers, Randall Galloway, Joe Homnick, Alec Milchin, Jeff Mitchell, Dan Stoltz, Ed Wilson, Tommy Patterson, James Quick, and Kevin Remney were all contributors of the book in certain chapters. And without Karen Cezal's backing on this and Microsoft's backing on this, I don't make a dime off the book. It was my evangelism efforts to just get the word out. Thank you, Microsoft Press, for picking up the tab on that. The editing of all of the teams that were involved in the Microsoft Virtual Academy teams, and more importantly, Crystal Thune, who did the Microsoft Virtual Academy. I thank you all for that. BizSpark as well as a sponsor. So if you're a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, and you're building your business out, and you're using Microsoft technologies, hit me up, Blain Barton, Microsoft.com. I'd like to make you a BizSpark customer. It's a free global program we have. So you get 3 years access to current full-featured software development tools. You get Azure benefits, some creds there. You get support for free MSDN instances and visibility to advisors and investors and mentors to kind of help the business along. The biggest thing here is you get BizSpark, you go build stuff, right? You go into Azure, and you build an app, and you build different services and applications that work together. So I want to thank BizSpark too for being a sponsor. But lots of different resources. Tim, I'll give you the deck. You can have this deck about all the different resources that are available. There's a lot there. Yeah, and I won't read each and every one of these, and because that would be another 10 or 15 minutes of going through all these. But as you can see through chapter 1, 2, into 3 with the OneDrive. So yeah, so I'll make these available for you as well. And so with that, Tim, hey, thanks for having me on. I'm sorry, we can kind of work through the different modules. If you really want more of a deep dive, I'd go to the Microsoft Virtual Academy. I'll also give you that main slide here.
Well, thanks. I know I appreciate everybody for being patient. That when Blaine went mute, that was my fault. I muted what I thought was I muted, there's a button that says mute attendees, and unfortunately it also muted Blaine, and we didn't have a good way to let him know that he was muted. So thanks for circling back and righting the ship. So we appreciate that, Blaine, and great presentation. Let's open it up for Q&A. And by the way, folks, we'll clean the recording up to preclude that 15-minute blank spot or 10-minute blank spot, and we'll get it up on YouTube, and then we'll get the slide deck from Blaine up on our meetup site at Mobile First Cloud first. Let's see if we got any questions here, Blaine. You can either take your phone off mute or type something into the chat box. See some folks typing.
Yeah, and once again, I mentioned that all of the modules in the MVA are, Tim, I tried to do step by step as much as I could there, but I think that the way in which kind of it's more of a la carte, if you will. I can jump to the different spots and see whatever I want to view, whatever modules I want to see. Like Intune, I found out that Intune is one of the more popular ones.
Yeah.
We have all of these. By the way, we're posting these out on TechNet Radio too. I think Intune had like 60,000 views of just the Intune one, which is right in front of Office 365 as far as views are concerned.
Right.
That tells me that people are really interested in Intune because they really don't know a lot about it.
Right.
I see Rick has a question in there about, does he indicate the book is free? The book is not free. The MVA is free, but the book is not free. It's actually a hard copy, or you can get soft copies for the different devices. So that's available at Blaine's book. You can check that out.
What I think
I did it for free.
Sorry. What I think's cool about your book is that because it ties in to a free and public resource, is that you can take a book like yours and let it kind of guide you through the areas of Azure that you're interested in. But if you do the book from A to Z, you read the book and then complement the MVA content and the labs that come out that tie into the MVA content, you will advance your skill set. You'll develop that consultant level set of skills to be a billable, more independent Azure professional. So you get that skill set advancement from your book. So it's a good model for putting content out there.
Yeah, well, I've also seen that where it's interesting is the book follows along. I mean, the MVA actually was built upon the modules or the chapters. Became modules in MVA. They're chapters in the book. But yeah, as Stephen was saying there, we built it out, the MVA based on the book. So what was nice about the MVA is I can go and I can go through the kind of the presentation that I went through, but it also has a bolt-on demo. It gets in the environment, so you can see, what's the Office 365 dashboard look like, and then it's like, okay, the book is going to help me step through what I showed you in the demos. I don't go step one, you do this, step two. The book does that. Right. So what I've been finding, Timothy, is that people go watch the MVA and they're like, wow, I want to set up Intune. Then they go and get the book, and it's either the ebook or the printed copy. So I was very, very lucky to have a printed copy because as these things kind of change quickly, my book was is printed out. So what's interesting is, I'm old school, so I like to print a copy so I can have it side by side as I'm doing stuff. But all this stuff is ebook as well. Another question. Do you recommend we use the book with customers? I'm always looking for a good icebreaker, looking for content. Does the book include presentations or is it just on the MVA for like BDMs, TDMs, discussions? George, great question. Excellent question. So I do recommend the book to be used with customers. It's a great leave behind as well. Sometimes I feel like this paratrooper that comes in. I come out in the sky, I land, I blast out content, and I leave. And there's really no leave behind. So not only for onboarding, for like a good icebreaker discussion around content, it's also a great leave behind. And the book does come with presentations. there's an instructor portal where the book is located, of Blain's book, aka.ms, Blain's book, up on the MS Press site. There's a certain section, you'll see it there, and it's for instructors. And there's instructors, under the instructor part, there's all the slides that I made available. There's also an exam. So we actually built out an exam as well, that you could just have your own exam, and you could use that. And I did that mainly for academia. So some of the schools out there have adopted my book here in the state of Florida. And, one of the things they want to do is not only have a book, but they kind of want an assessment, right, Tim? Like they want an assessment to test for understanding and knowledge around the book. So the exam is up there, as well as the instructor PowerPoint for anybody that wants to do a presentation around the book in general. And if you want to go to the next level, you can use an assessment, right?
Right.
The questions and the answers are up there, okay. but it is a way in which you can do an assessment. But hey, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. And once again, if you've got any questions around that, I'm Blain Barton. You can send me an email to blainbar, BLAINBAR, at Microsoft.com.
Right on. I'll put that information out on the meetup information for this meetup. Let's see. Oh yeah, Blain Bar at Microsoft.com. There we go. Nikia's typing it in. Awesome.
Okay.
Or is that
anytime.
Okay, that was Nikia. All right. Well, we appreciate it, Blain, very much, and we hope to have you again for maybe a Windows 10 in the Enterprise chat in January. For those of you who don't know, I met Blain. I was interested in doing an IT Pro Camp for Jacksonville, Florida, and Blain and his team in Florida had been doing IT Pro Camps in Tampa, Orlando, Sarasota, South Florida, and they were super welcoming. And I was able to get IT Pro Camp in Jacksonville off the ground. And then I met a couple friends, Sid Moore, Steve Wheeler. We got another one run, and then I got my job at Microsoft. So it's been nice. And then Blain is my mentor for community and evangelical issues. So we hope to have Blain back a lot more, and then hopefully we'll get to see Blain, who founded the IT Pro Camp movement. We want to see Blain at our April 16th event in Chevy Chase. So hopefully the travel and expense gods will bless Blain and allow him to travel.
Yeah, I think I got a hall pass for that already. So
I love hall passes.
Yes. Yeah, so I'll be up there. I'd like, whatever I can do there to kick it off and talk about the 501c3 charity. That's really what it's all about. It's giving back to the community. That's what I do for the charity is about 5-6 years ago I founded the charity.
Yeah.
It took about that long to get the actual paperwork from the IRS. But now we're off and running. So we're just trying to raise sponsorship funds and then give back to the community and do awesome things like he did with the last DC camp he did.
Yeah, man.
Where he blew that out of the water. Even Jacksonville, he blew that out of the water, man. A couple hundred people there. So with that, hey, thanks for having me. I'll be happy to come back in January to talk about Windows 10 in the enterprise. I'm doing the road show coming up for all the Windows 10 launches. So I'm preparing content, so I'll already have that.
That sounds good. And also in January we have in the DC area, I don't have the date specifically, but we're having another Azure Con, like a big Azure Road Show. I don't know if you're in on that loop or not. Were you one of the presenters? I know you were in Philly a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was. I was actually doing the immersions thing there. So I was proctoring hands-on labs. So
right on.
But I appreciate all your help, Tim, and that great job you really built that meetup up pretty quick, so that's a great job.
Me and Nikia Carter, who's my partner in crime, and we got some good user group participants too. So, all right, Blain, I'm gonna go ahead and hit stop on recording and let you have the rest of your day. We sure appreciate it.
Anytime, it's my pleasure.
All right, thanks, Blain. Bye, everybody.
Take care.